Once a cop, let it not, yeah. I for one thing we should celebrate redemption instead of condemning it.
Welcome to Corey's Corner. This episode, we're still talking about the NYPD sex overtime scandal. But I want to point something out, a little background. We know that former disgraced Chief of Department Jeff Madry had to resign due to a sexual allegation from Lieutenant Epps that involved pay for play, sex for money. That's what they came out and said immediately. That was the deal. Now they've been doing a little bit of investigation, found out that his driver, Officer or Detective Sanders, she was promoted. I think she was a cop in 21, third grade 22, second grade 23, first grade 24. She made over $160,000 in overtime too. So there's three people that so far we know that's really involved in this scandal. It's the two females that I just mentioned, and there's another female, a young Spanish woman that works in the domestic violence section. She was transferred out of there. She's a rookie. She only got 5 years on the job. She made like $55,000 in overtime. So you got the chief of department and these three ladies. So the common denominator for all of them is race. They're minorities. So the papers are constantly talking about it, and I said, let me do a little bit more investigating. So somebody, a source, sent me a list of overtime earners, the top 13. So in my book, yes, once a copy book that I write in, I have a list of the top 12 overtime earners. So I said, let me do a racial breakdown. It's all public information, how much people make anyway. But just for identity purposes, I'm going to redact their names. But here's the list. You see the list up on the screen. So let's go through the list. Lieutenant Epps, we know her name is already publicly out there. She made $403,000. Listen to these numbers. The next person, he was a lieutenant in Patrol Service Bureau, Chief of Patrol. He made $378,000. The next person, 376, 356, 347, 343, 333, 326, 317, 313, 312. Common denominator with each and every one of them, they was all lieutenant special assignment. So lieutenant special assignment is a lieutenant, but he was designated because he or she is so good that they're giving them captain's pay. So they're a lieutenant, but they're making the pay of a captain. I believe the top pay for a captain now is like $225,000. So you do the math, and you can see how much overtime they made on this list. All lieutenant special assignment or lieutenant designated, same thing. But when I went through the list, I said, wow, Epps is black. And I counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 out of the 12 are white. Whoa, that's being swept under the rug. This big overtime scandal, all they're talking about is Jeff Madry, the girl, now his driver, the young Spanish girl. But you have, out of the top 12, you have 9 white people that made a tremendous amount of overtime. So the question is to the police commissioner, why are you not talking about this? Well, I've already been publicly speaking about the number 2 guy who made $378,000, and he worked for the chief of patrol, and you promoted him to chief of department in the mix of a major overtime scandal. How did his lieutenant make $378,438? Unbelievable. And they all were in special units. Chief of department office is another guy on the chief of department office. Let's see how much he made. Another guy. He's like number 8 or 9. He made $317,000. So they was like, chief department office was like, Oprah Winfrey, you get overtime, you get overtime, you get overtime. And no one was checking the book. But I want to speak about this racial component because it's pretty unfair. They're beating the mess out of Madry, Epps, and now Sanders, his driver, Detective Sanders. And you have 9 out of the 12. And I might be off on 1, maybe 1, but 8 to 9 out of the 12 is, wait, how does this happen? I see a couple of Italians, I see some Irish. How does this happen? This is insane. And nobody's speaking about that angle. So we want to see at this point now, is there a racial component to this that they're doing this big investigation. Well, I know what the investigation is about. The feds are involved now, so it's hands off with the Internal Affairs Bureau. But curious minds want to know, especially Corey Pickeys, because this doesn't make sense. But it looks like it's some unfair treatment for Marjorie, Epps, and Sanders to be blasted all over the newspaper. And you have these other people, non-minorities, and half of them put their papers in already. They're off on the sunset, going to a beach, sipping on martinis. This Fed case is about the money. They're following the money. And I spoke about that in the last episode, so we'll see exactly what happens. But there's a racial component to this, which I'm not really surprised. I was in the NYPD for a couple of decades. You know, racism is alive in the NYPD. I know that. Unbelievable. There's a racial component to this overtime that I didn't know about, but luckily I have some sources that give me some information once in a while. Let me know your thoughts. Leave comments and let me know. It's axcoreypickeys@gmail.com. I'm Corey Pickeys. Always keep it right now real. Peace.